Hello and welcome to another Lizzie Daily live lesson. My name is Doug Allan. I'm a wildlife filmmaker and I had the chance to talk on a live lesson a few weeks ago about my encounters with whales. Well, today it's another underwater mammal, the seals, that I'm going to tell you about. You find seals all over the world. They're common in lots of places around the UK, like the Farne Islands, Lundy in the Bristol Channel, Orkney, parts of the Norfolk coast. Those are especially good, but I'm going to concentrate on the seals in the polar regions because, well, you know me, and well, that's where my best stories come from. So let me introduce seals generally. Seals are mammals, so they have to breathe at the surface from time to time. It's not like they can stay underwater indefinitely like fish. They all have blubber, which is a layer of fat underneath their skin to help them to stay warm in the water. They feed their pups with milk, and they can see well. Oh, hold on while I check my notes. 1 minute. Hold on. Oh gosh. How embarrassing. Oops. Hold on. Oh. Oh. Oh my gosh. Where are we? I now have to remember all that I was going to say to you. Right, let's try this. Now, I had the chance to talk on a live lesson a few weeks ago, like I say. Now, you'll find seals all over the world, but I'm going to concentrate on the polar regions because you know me, etc. So, seals. God, this is terrible. Seals are mammals, so they have to breathe at the surface from time to time. They can't stay underwater indefinitely like fish. They all have blubber, which is a layer of fat underneath their skin to help them stay warm in the water. They feed their pups with milk. They can see well underwater. They can see as well as we can. They can also hear well underwater. They obviously can't smell because their nostrils are closed when they're underneath the water. They're closed all the time. They do make noises underwater, but not the kind of noises you could use as sonar. You know, dolphins, for example, they make very high-pitched sounds, and they can send this out as a focused beam, and it bounces back off objects, and the dolphins listen for the echoes coming back so they can find their food. Seals can't make those kind of high-pitched noises. Close up to you, seals do rely on hearing and the sight and touch, which is why when a seal comes close, it kind of mouths at you like this. It wants to taste what you're like. Are you hard, soft, tasty? Just find out a bit more about you. Now, some species were hunted extensively in the past. Elephant seals, for example, for their oil, and fur seals for the fur, for their pelt. And in some areas, they were almost brought to extinction. That doesn't happen anymore, but entanglement in fishing gear is definitely a danger for them in some parts of the world. Now, there's basically two kinds of seals. And the big division comes down to, can you see them when they're moving, or can you see their ears? Now, if a seal's moving across the ground and it moves like a big sort of slug, kind of humping across the ground with its flippers not quite touching the ground, that's one kind of seal. But if you see another one and it's sitting up like it was in a circus, about to put balance a ball on its nose, that's the other kind. Now, with sea lions and fur seals, looking at the ears, with sea lions and fur seals, yes, you can see this. You can see the ears. They're just like tiny little flaps on the side of their head. The other kind of seal are the so-called earless seals. Well, they're not quite earless. It's just that all you can see, if you look at them, is tiny little holes on the side of their head. That's where the air, that's where the sound goes into, and that's how they manage to hear. So they don't have any part of their ear visible at the outside. Now, there are 11 different kinds of seals at the poles, and none of them live at both the poles. You've got the Arctic seals at the top and the Antarctic seals at the bottom. Now, I've been in the water with 9 out of those 11. And the thing is, all those 11 have got a different character, their own personality. I mean, they're mammals after all, aren't they? You know, like you and me, and like dogs and horses and cats. And we all know how different, they are from each other and as individuals. So what have we got? Well, in the north, we've got bearded, hooded, harp, ringed and ribbon seals. In the south, we've got elephant seals, crab eaters, fur seals, leopard seals, Ross seals and Weddell seals. I'll be referring to them as Ellies, crabbies, furries, leps and weds. Now, I can speak intimately for all of them except Ross seals, which I've only seen a couple of occasions, and the ribbons I've yet to add to my list. The ribbons live in a place called the Sea of Okhotsk, which, I had to check where that is too. Basically, down below the Bering Sea on a map, down below the Bering Strait into the Pacific, and then across to the left-hand side, Japan side. That's where the Sea of Okhotsk is. But as I say, I've never had a chance to film them there. So let me start with the ones that give me the biggest buzz. Leopard seals. Big, sexy, charismatic, intelligent hunters. If you had asked me 50 years ago if they were dangerous, I would have said, well, they're exciting, but they're not dangerous. But very unfortunately, this scientist called Kirsty Brown, been working in the Antarctic, she was swimming in the water, a leopard seal came up and grabbed her and took her down. She was drowned. Now, the leopard seal almost certainly mistook Kirsty for a prey because sometimes leopard seals take elephant seals in the water. And the leopard probably knew almost immediately, the minute it grabbed her, that she was the wrong kind of prey. But it still grabbed onto her, held her down, and pulled her down for a fatally long time. She was terribly unlucky. The normal prey of a leopard seal is actually krill, though we usually film them when they're taking penguins. Krill happens out deep, open ocean, hard to get close to. The leps, when it comes to seals, the leps, when it comes to penguins, are really clever animals. They've got lots of different ways of hunting. Sometimes they lie right in the shallows with the waves breaking over their back, breaking over their head, and they just lie there with the head in the bubble and the foaminess. They just lunge out and grab at anything that's going past. Other times, they've got very maneuverable flippers and they will zoom after their prey and even catch them out in the open water. So I'm just going in here for something else. Oh. Hold on a minute. I'm not as well organised, am I, this time? Where am I? Stand by 1 minute, please. Hold on. Don't go away. I'm just looking. I'm trying just to find my notes here. Hold on a minute. There we are. Seals for Lizzie. Oh, no, that's not it. Hang on 1 minute. This is not like me, is it? He said, famous last words. So, here I am. I've got my leps here. So I'm going to go into my live chat. Here we are, right. What was I talking about? Sorry about that, guys. Leopard seals, yeah. What's interesting about a lep is that when you go close to them, they get really, really interested in you. they're territorial when they're hunting, so they like to be kind of left on their own. But when you swim up close to them, you end up, they can see themselves sometimes reflected in the lens, and they'll come right up and then they open their mouths really wide and they take the whole of the front of the camera into their mouth. I think they see themselves reflected in the curved surface of the front of the lens, and they think it's another seal, and so they go into this threat behaviour. And I had one take the whole of the front of the camera into its mouth, and then I could hear its teeth closing down. I could hear the teeth scratching on the front of the lens, and I was able to pull focus from its tonsils to its back teeth. I could look right down its throat. It was really, really exciting. There isn't actually an equivalent of leopard seals up in the Arctic. None of the seals up there in the north eat anything apart from krill and fish. The most numerous of the northern seals is the ringed seal, and that's a much smaller seal, and it's the staple food of polar bears. That makes them ultra wary on the top. They're really hard to film to get close to, because when they haul out on top of the ice, they're never further than a metre from a crack in the ice or the breathing hole, and they can get back into the water really, really quickly. They do go to sleep, but only about 20 seconds at a time. They'll pop their heads up, look around wearily, go back down again. So they're very, very hard to get close to. They normally sleep if they're under the snow. They can make little layers for themselves underneath the snow, and the polar bear can still smell them underneath the snow. And the polar bear will zero in, trying to locate by smell where the seal is, and then when it thinks it's close, goes up on its hind legs and then pounds down, tries to break down to the lair. But they're not that often, to be honest. They're not that successful very often. Now, the ring seals can live under solid ice. There's only one seal in the Antarctic which can live in solid ice, because to live in solid ice, a seal needs to be able to maintain its breathing hole. And Weddell seals can do that in the Antarctic. Weddell seals live further south than any other mammal, certainly further south than any other seal. All the other seals, as the ice forms in the winter, they have to head north and stay where the ice is broken up. But Weddell seals can keep their holes open by rasping at the edges of the hole with their teeth. The ring seal uses its claws. The Weddell seal uses its teeth. It kind of pulls down and pulls down at the same time, moving its head from side to side. Now, Weds are probably the most handsome of the seals. They're super handsome to look at. They're very gentle sort of character. If seals were dogs, then Weddell seals would be Labradors. That's the way I look on them. We used to tag them, and they used to go to sleep so soundly that you could go up to them and you could lift their tail up and spread their tail out like that, and then put the cow tag. We use things like cow ear tags, clip that on the flesh in between their tail, and then fold it up again and put it down carefully and carry on, because they were so easygoing. You'd never find, the Weddell seal could only sleep like that so soundly because there's no polar bears in the Antarctic. If there were polar bears, they'd have to stay alert like the ringed seals. Weddell seals make two kinds of dives. They do deep ones for feeding and shallower ones for exploring their environment. Sometimes they feed just underneath the ice. Some scientists put cameras onto Weddell seals, and they found they'd swim along under the ice, and when they saw fish hiding in the little cracks up in the ice, the Weddell seal would blow air out of its nose, and the bubbles would go up and freak the fish, and the fish would come down into the open water, and the seal would grab them. Down deeper, down at 800 meters deep, the Weddell seals feed on much bigger fish. They feed on a fish called the Patagonian toothfish, which can be up to 1.5 meters long. And imagine that, in the darkness, the Weddell seals can find these fish. And the way they do it is that as the fish swims, it is moving its tail, it's leaving a very slight wake in the water. And the Weddell seal, as it's swimming, its whiskers detect those little bits of turbulence in the water, and it can swim around, and by keeping half its head in the turbulence and half its head in the smoother water, the Weddell seal can actually follow the fish in the darkness, catch up with it, and then take it. It's amazing. They're remarkable animals. Now, the other thing is, think of a wed underwater for up to an hour underneath the ice, way down 700-800 metres swimming. How does it find its breathing hole back in the ice? Because that hole might be the only hole for miles around in the ice. How does it find it? Well, we now think that it's because Weddell seals are able to detect very slight changes in the magnetic field around the Earth. A little bit like birds. Birds migrate by using the magnetic field around the Earth. Well, we think, a bit mysterious, but that's how we think Weddell seals do it. Whatever it is they do use, it's obviously going to be really, really good, because if they don't find that hole, then they're basically going to die. They make lovely long whistling noises. You stand on the ice and you can hear them. You can hear them going from one side to the other underneath you, and then they make that kind of noise. That's the males when they're underwater, guarding their underwater territory. Now, on the other end of the temperament scale to weds are the fur seals. They are definitely the most likely seal to bite a diver. 100 years ago they were thought to be extinct, but a few were discovered on South Georgia, and since then they've just zoomed up in the numbers. They're good fun to dive with, especially when they're socialising in groups. But the problem is they socialise with each other by sort of zooming in and nipping each other on the tails and the flippers and things like that. And if you get caught in the middle of one and accepted by the group, then they'll probably start nipping you. And a playful nip from a fur seal is definitely enough to take a chunk out of your dry suit or even a chunk out of your elbow. So you sometimes have to, be careful with them. Harps and hooded seals, they live up in the north, up in the loose pack ice. The hooded seal is a really weird animal. It's a very strange animal. They look a bit like elephant seals down south, but they're big noses. When a male hooded seal wants to show its dominance, it lumbers over the ice and it blows its big nose up until it covers the front of its face and its head. But when they get really aroused, you look and there's a little red fleshy balloon starts to come out of one nostril. And then it gets bigger to a tennis ball and a football. And then it's just like a bright red beach ball. And this thing's coming out its nose like this. And it shakes it around like mad and it makes a weird sort of roaring noise. And this is a threat display to other hooded seals that may be coming in and want to mate with the same female. It really is a very, very odd looking seal. Now there's nothing confusing on the other hand about why elephant seals got their name. Their size, big massive noses, they're unmistakable. It's strange, isn't it, how the biggest of the seals should be the most timid underwater. When an elephant seal goes to sea, they either spend time in the murky shallows just off the beach, or they head straight out into open water. And if you do manage to get one in your viewfinder, you've got to leave it plenty of room to get past you, because they tend to go into a panic, and if you are blocking their only way out to sea, they'll just come right over the top of you. Now, elephant seals can dive deeper than any other seals. They've got a very large volume of blood in their body. They've got big sinuses, big air spaces in their abdomens, and that holds blood and can store oxygen in their muscles. And the blood carries more blood cells than other seals, and they carry a lot of oxygen. When they dive, they slow down their heartbeat and they change where the blood flows in their body. They move the blood from outside of their body, close to the outside, to the important organs right in the core of their body. And these adaptations mean that southern fur seals can dive to 2,800 meters underwater and can be underwater for more than an hour and a half at a time. When they're feeding away from land for weeks at a time, they might only spend 10% of that time at the surface. It's almost like the seal becomes a whale, or more like a fish, It just hardly seems to need to breathe. When we're talking about them making these diving as well, we know that whales and dolphins sleep at the surface by sort of switching off half of their brain and keeping the other half active. Elephant seals can't do that. So people often wondered, how do they sleep in all that time that they spend at sea? Well, they've just found that ellies probably actually sleep underwater. they attached little instruments to the seals when they were on land. And these instruments collected information about how deep the dive was, how long the dive was, but also how the seal was moving in the water. So they found out that seals, sometimes when they're deep, they roll over and then they just kind of do a gentle spiral down towards the bottom in a slow descent, which they called a drift dive. And they sort of wobble as they go down. And one scientist looked at this and he sort of thought this is more like how a leaf flutters to the ground when it falls off a tree. It means that by sort of floating like this and sort of slowly spiraling, it means that the Ellies descend more slowly into the depths. And scientists believe that they use these long dives to rest and sleep while they're underwater. And when they do that at depth, sort of 600 or 700 meters, that also reduces the risk of attack by predators. So how about that? Imagine an Ellie way, way down under the sea, drifting like a leaf in the darkness, resting as it heads towards the seabed. The seabed. Did you get that? That was a joke. A bad joke, but a bad joke at the end is a good place to stop. So I want to thank you all for coming and listening to my slightly shambolic live lesson from time to time. I'm going to whiz across here and look at some questions and see if I've got anything. Have I ever had any scary moments with seals? That's a question from Eliza. From Emily. Well, scary moments with seals. I did get bitten by a seal once. I was underneath the ice. I looked up and I could see a wee face peering down at me from a hole in the ice. And it was a little pup. So I began to swim up towards the pup to get a shot. And from out of the darkness, its mum came barreling out of the darkness. And I just had time to swing the camera around and she took a nip at my finger as she went past. But, that was me doing something daft. That was me sort of, doing something threatening towards her pup. So I don't blame her for attacking me. That's just the way it goes. But there was that. You obviously have to be careful when you're around about leopard seals, particularly in bad visibility. It could be that they'll just, lash out and try to chomp your leg or something like that. When you go close to the ice edge with leopard seals, you have to be careful because if you look at the ice edge, any penguins there, they'll always stand back from the ice edge. That's because a leopard seal can be hunting along that open water. And if any penguins do go too close, the leopard seal will come out of the water and try to grab them. So you, as you walk towards the edge of the ice, you too can sound like a penguin underwater. And the leopard seal will wait until you're close to the edge and then he'll come jumping out and, give you a problem that way. So it's all good stuff and that makes them very exciting. But I have to say that what I like is I just like being in the water with them because they're often super friendly, super curious. They'll come up close, and it's great. So I would urge any of you that have listened to my live lesson who are interested in seals, go out there, go to the places where you can find them, take a boat out, potter around, look at them, and if you get the chance to go in the water with them, then that would be absolutely fab. Okay, that's it. I think Lizzie's got at least one more lesson tomorrow, and thanks to her for putting all of these on. But in the meantime, thank you all for those who are listening to me. Apologies for the glitches in the middle, but I'll maybe see you somewhere. Okay, take care all. Cheers. Ugh.